咩，但係神冇同我講。
Actually, I had a sermon in mind, but I thought, okay, this sermon is good, but if God gives me a word about changing the sermon, then I will change the sermon.
其實我已經有開一個講章啦，但係個講章都係幾好嘅。咁我同神啦，有時嗰神冇俾我就講過。
But right after Anwar became the 10th Prime Minister, immediately the word of God came to me.
當安華被選為首相嘅時候咧，神嘅話語就臨到我。
So I said, yeah, I will preach on this, Lord.
所以我就講我應該講呢篇道。
And the Lord asked him to preach on the life of Joseph.
今日我要同大家講嘅係講關於個約瑟嘅生命。
You know, many times we Christians, we read bits and pieces of the Bible here and there.
好多時候我哋基督徒我哋讀聖經嘅時候，呢度讀一啲，嗰度讀一啲。
And then for Sunday, so you know, just have one passage.
禮拜日咧有呢個經文經節。
But to preach on the life of Joseph this morning, I need to use 4 chapters of the Bible.
咁今日同大家講過呢個約瑟嘅生命咧，我用4章啊。
Maybe I have to go back 2 p.m. So anyway, please turn to your Bible to chapter 37 of Genesis.
請我哋打開創世記第37章。
So we're going to look at Genesis 37. We skip 38 because 38 is about Judah, and then we go to 39, 40, 41.
咁我哋就讀37，我哋唔讀38，然後9到39到41章。
So instead of reading 4 chapters at one go, I'm going to unpack for you in my sermon the 4 chapters.
咁我哋唔會讀4章啊，但係從呢個講道當中，我哋就從呢4章當中講出嚟。
Let us pray.
我哋一齊祈禱。
Lord, you are here with us. You are here with us.
神你與我哋同在。
And we know you will always be with us.
我知道我哋知道神你時時都與我哋同在。
And you are with all the righteous people in the world.
你與所有嘅公義嘅人同在。
Whether they are Christians or not.
無論佢哋係唔係基督徒。
And especially as Christians,
特別係我哋基督徒。
we know that you are our Emmanuel.
我哋知道你係與我哋同在。
The God who is with us.
神與我哋同在。
So we know that as we hear your word,
當我哋聆聽你嘅話語嘅時候
we are reassured that indeed you are with us.
我哋再一次被堅定，你係與我哋同在。
Through joys and sorrows.
無論係歡喜或者係痛苦
Through our ups and downs.
我哋個有歡喜有快樂。
You will never leave us. You will never forsake us.
你永遠都唔會離開我哋。
Because you are the God who is with us.
因為你係與我哋同在嘅神。
As we look at the life of Joseph,
當我哋睇呢個約瑟嘅生命嘅時候
drive it home to us that surely you will be with us.
當中我哋睇到你真係與我哋同在。
All this we pray in the name of Jesus Christ.
奉主耶穌基督得勝嘅名求。
Amen.
阿們。
So that you will not be lost, I put the verses up there.
我將呢啲經文寫在上邊嚇，你哋自己睇啊。
Okay, let's look at Genesis 37 verses 2 to 4.
我哋睇創世記第37章第2節到第4節。
Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel, that is Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, 10 other sons, because Joseph had been born to him in his old age. And Jacob made a richly ornamented robe for Joseph. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father loved Joseph more than any of them, they hated Joseph and could not speak a kind word to him.
創世記第37章第2節開始啦。雅各的記略如下：約瑟17歲，與他哥哥們一同牧羊。他是個童子，與他父親的石帕的兒子們常在一處。約瑟將他哥哥的惡行報給他們的父親。以色列原來愛約瑟過於愛他的眾子，因為約瑟是他年老生的。他給約瑟作了一件彩衣。約瑟的哥哥們見父親愛約瑟過於愛他們，就恨約瑟，不與他說和睦的話。
So Joseph is like the Chinese say, 拉仔拉心肝 favorite son. So here we see in verse 2, Joseph is 17 years old, 17.
好，第2節我哋睇到約瑟係17歲啊
The father altogether has 11 sons, and Joseph is the youngest.
佢爸爸有11個仔，咁呢個約瑟咧係最細嘅。
But of all his 11 sons, he loved Joseph the most.
咁佢有咁多個仔當中咧，佢係最愛呢個約瑟嘅。
Why?
做咩咧？
Because Joseph had been born to him in his old age.
因為約瑟係佢年老嘅時候得到嘅，生出嚟嘅。
I'm the youngest in a family of 8.
牧師咧係佢屋企有8個，佢係最細嘅。
Everywhere my mother goes, I lead her.
咁我哋媽媽去邊度咧，佢就跟住去㗎，佢跟住去。
Morning exercise,
我哋朝頭早去運動。
Wednesday prayer meeting in church.
咁星期3嘅呢個祈禱會。
Every Sunday beside her in church for worship.
咁每個禮拜日都坐喺佢邊皮一齊嚟敬拜神。
She goes for visitation, I'm there.
佢去探訪嘅時候，我都係跟住去。
She visits the pastor, I'm there.
咁去探訪牧師嘅時候，我都係喺嗰度。
She goes to cinema, I'm there.
佢去睇戲嘅時候，我都係一齊。
Opera show also I'm there.
咁去睇啲大戲啊。
大戲。
我都係一樣有去。
But I don't understand, but I'm there.
雖然我好多嘢我唔明白，但係我都係喺嗰度。
She goes for dinners, I'm there.
佢去宴會嘅時候，我哋跟飲酒，我又係去。
Yeah, everywhere.
無論去邊度，我都係跟住佢。
Because I'm the youngest.
因為我係最細嘅。
So because Jacob loved Joseph so much, Jacob made a richly ornamented robe for Joseph.
因為雅各佢愛約瑟，好愛約瑟啊，所以佢就為佢做咗一件彩色嘅衣服。
What was the brothers' reactions?
咁佢哥哥佢哋嗰啲反應係咩咧？
They hated him.
佢哋咧就好憎佢嘅。
They could not speak a kind word to him.
所以佢哋就從來都唔話佢好嘅。
He was rejected by his 10 older brothers.
咁佢係俾佢10個哥哥咧拒絕咗。
Verses 5 to 8.
咁喺第5節到第8節。
Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out of the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule over us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said.
喺第5節，約瑟作了一夢，告訴他哥哥們，他們就越發恨他。約瑟對他們說：請聽我所作的夢。我們在田裏捆禾稼，我的捆起嚟站着，你們的捆嚟圍着我的捆下拜。他的哥哥們回答說：難道你真要作我們的王嗎？難道你真要管轄我們嗎？他們就因為他的夢和他的話越發恨他。
And they hated him all the more because of his first dream.
咁因為約瑟佢有咗呢個夢之後咧，嗰啲哥 就更加嘅憎佢。
And they were so angry with him.
佢哋真係好嬲啊！
And they asked him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?"
咁佢哥哥就同佢講啊，唔通你真係會管轄我哋咩？你真係會高過我哋咩？
Then Joseph had a second dream.
咁約瑟咧就有第二個夢啊
Verse 9.
嚇，第9節。
Then he had another dream and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me."
第9節，後來他又作了一夢，也告訴他的哥哥們說：看啊，我又作了一夢，夢見太陽、月亮以11個星向我下拜。
What was his father's response to his second dream?
咁佢爸爸對佢第二個夢個反應係乜嘢呢？
His father rebuked him and said in verse 10, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?"
喺第10節呢度，佢爸爸咧就責備佢説：你作的這是什麼夢？難道我和你母親、你弟兄果然要嚟俯伏在地向你下拜咩？
What was the response of his brothers?
咁佢哥哥們嗰啲反應係點樣呢？
Verse 11.
11節，
His brothers were jealous of him.
佢哥哥都好妒忌佢。
One day,
有一日，
Jacob, his father, sent Joseph to look for his 10 brothers.
咁有一日雅各就派呢個約瑟去揾佢哥哥。
The brothers were grazing the flocks at another place to see,
咁佢哥哥係喺另外一個地方放羊，
and the father sent Joseph to find them to see how they were and report back to Jacob.
咁呢個佢爸爸咧就派約瑟去睇下佢哥哥點啊，然後翻嚟報告俾佢爸爸知道。
And then the unexpected happened.
咁咧就有啲事情發生啦。
Verses 18 to 20.
18節到20節，
So Joseph went to find his brothers, but they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes the dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns." A cistern is a water container which they dug in the pit, and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams.
18節開始啊。
18 to 20.
他們遠遠地看見他，趁他還沒有走到他跟前，大家就同謀要害死他，彼此說：你睇，那作夢的嚟咯！來吧，我們將他殺了，丟在一個坑裏，就說有惡獸把他食了，我們且看他的夢將來怎麼樣。
However, Joseph's eldest brother, Reuben, the number one son of Jacob, came to Joseph's rescue.
但係佢哥哥大哥啦嚇，呢個叫做流便嘅，就愛救呢個細佬咯。
呢個最大個哥啊。Okay. Verses 21 to 22. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue Joseph from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the desert, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take Joseph back to his father.
流便聽見了，要救他脱離他們的手，說：我們不可害他的性命，又說不可流他的血，可以把他丟在這野地的坑裏，不可下手害他。流便的意思係要救他脱離他們的手，把他歸還他的父親。
So what happened to Joseph after this?
咁過後約瑟會點樣呢？
Verses 23 to 24.
23到24節。
So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the richly ornamented robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There was no water in it.
23節，約瑟到了他哥哥們那裏，他們就剝了他的外衣，就是他穿的那件彩衣，把他丟在坑裏。那坑是空的，裏頭沒有水。
Would Joseph be left in the cistern?
咁呢個約瑟會唔會留低喺嗰個坑裏邊呢？
Verses 25 to 28.
25節到28節。
The brothers sat down to eat their meal. They looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. The camels were loaded with spices, balm and myrrh, and they were on the way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." His brothers agreed. So, when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt.
25節開始啊，他們坐下食飯，舉目觀看，見有一伙米甸的以實瑪利人從基列來，用落河負責香料、蘆香沒藥，要帶下埃及去。又大堆中弟兄說：我們殺我們的兄弟，藏了他的血，有什麼益處呢？我們不如將他賣給以實瑪利人，不可下手害他，因為他是我們的兄弟，我們的骨肉。眾弟兄就聽從了他。有些米甸的商人從那裏經過，哥哥們就把約瑟從坑裏拉上嚟，講定10舍客勒銀子，把約瑟賣給以實瑪利人，他們就把約瑟帶到埃及去了。
Verses 29 to 30.
29到30節。
When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, "The boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?"
29節後邊回到坑邊，見約瑟不在坑裏，就撕裂衣服，回到兄弟們那裏，說：童子沒有了，我往哪裏去才好呢？
How are the 10 brothers now going to explain to their father about Joseph's disappearance?
咁呢個10個兄弟佢哋點樣去向佢爸爸解釋呢個約瑟唔見咗呢？
Verses 31 to 32.
31到32節。
Then the brothers got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They took the ornamented robe back to the father and said, "We found this. Examine to see whether it is your son's robe."
咁他們宰了一隻公山羊，把約瑟的那件彩衣染了血，打發人送到他們的父親那裏說：我們撿了這個，請認一認是你兒子的外衣，不是。
What was Jacob's reaction to Joseph's blood-stained robe?
咁雅各佢對呢個睇到呢件彩色嘅衣服咧，佢有咩反應咧
Verses 33 to 35.
？33到34節。
Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son Joseph for many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort Jacob, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "in mourning will I go down to the grave to my son Joseph." So his father wept for him.
雅各便撕裂衣服，腰間圍上麻布，為他兒子悲哀了多日。他的兒女都起嚟安慰他，他卻不肯受安慰，說：我必悲哀着下陰間到我兒子那裏。約瑟的父親就為他哀哭。
And Joseph, what happened to him?
咁約瑟又點樣呢？
Please turn to chapter 39.
我哋睇 39章
verse 1.
第1節。
Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian, was one of Pharaoh's officials. The captain of the guard bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there.
約瑟被帶下埃及去，有一個埃及人係法老的女臣，副衛長波提法，從那些帶下他來的以實瑪利人手下買了他去。
Is this the end for Joseph?
咁呢個係咪約瑟個結局呢？
From the beloved son of his father to being a slave in the Egyptian officer's house for the rest of his life?
從佢爸爸最愛嘅兒子變成個埃及，成為一個奴隸啊，咁樣仲係咪佢嘅一生呢？
Verses 2 to 6a.
第2節到第6節個上半節。
The Lord was with Joseph, and Joseph prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave Joseph success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put Joseph in charge of his household, and Potiphar entrusted to Joseph's care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of his household and of all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So Potiphar left in Joseph's care everything he had, with Joseph in charge. He did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate.
第2節開始啊。約瑟住在他主人埃及人的家中，耶和華與他同在，他就百事順利。他主人見耶和華與他同在，又見耶和華使他手裏所辦的盡都順利。約瑟就在主人眼前蒙恩，伺候他主人，並且主人派他管理家務，把一切所有的都交在他手裏。自從主人派約瑟管理家務和他一切所有的，耶和華就因約瑟的緣故賜福以那埃及人的家，凡家裏和田間一切所有的都蒙耶和華賜福。波提法將一切所有的都交在約瑟的手中，除了自己所食的飯，別的事一概不知。約瑟原來受雅尊名。
How did it happen?
呢啲事點樣發生嘅呢？
His master Potiphar saw that God was with Joseph, and that God gave Joseph success in everything Joseph did.
咁佢個主人呢個波提法睇到神與約瑟同在，佢所做嘅一切，上帝都祝福佢。
And more than that, from the time Potiphar put Joseph in charge of his household and all that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of Potiphar because of Joseph. Verse 5.
唔單單咁樣，就係凡係波提法將佢自從呢個約瑟離開之後啊，波提法家裏面所有嘅都蒙神特別嘅祝福。
And the blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in his house and in the field.
咁神就好祝福佢啊！唔單單係家裏邊嘅，響出邊銀行嗰啲都係一樣。
Joseph had been betrayed by his own brothers.
咁約瑟俾佢哋喺個哥哥就出賣咗，
Had been sold as a slave,
佢俾賣變成一個奴隸。
and is now a foreign worker in a foreign land.
而家佢係響一個外地，係成為一個好似我哋講啲外勞咁樣啊。
Do we see an angry person here?
咁你會睇到係咪有一個好撞火嘅人喺度咧？
Do we see a person talking bad about his brothers?
你有睇到一個人喺呢度特別講佢哥哥啲壞事咧？
Do we see a person in deep sadness and depression here?
你有睇到一個好傷心嘅人咧？
No.
冇，我哋冇睇過嘛。
We see a person who's working hard.
我哋睇到一個好勤力做工嘅人。
We see a person who is making the best of his situation.
咁我哋睇到一個佢就將佢環境變成最好嘅。
We see a person trusting God with his life and his future.
咁我哋睇到一個人咧，佢將佢自己嘅前邊嘅道路將來都一切交在神嘅手中。
We see a person being blessed by God in every way.
咁我哋睇到呢個人去俾上帝祝福佢，無論佢做乜嘢，上帝都祝福佢。
God bless him because of a deep spirituality.
上帝祝福佢係因為佢屬靈嗰個生命。
God bless him because he had a positive attitude towards all that life had thrown at him.
咁上帝祝福佢係因為佢對無論佢生命有咩事咩環境都好，佢有一個積極嘅心去面對。
However,
但係
life is not a straight line.
我哋嘅生命係一條直線嚇，
Life has its twists and turns.
好多時候係彎彎曲曲嘅。
Chapter 39, verses 6b to 10.
我哋睇39章第6節下半節。
Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." But he refused. "With me in charge," he told her, "my master does not concern himself with anything in this house. Everything he owns he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her.
第6節下半節約瑟原來受雅尊美，這是以後約瑟主人的妻以目送情給約瑟說：你與我同寢吧。約瑟不從，對他主人的妻說：看啊，一切家務我主人都不知道，他把所有的都交在我手裏，在這家裏沒有比我大的，並且他沒有留下一樣不交給我，只留下了你，因為你是他的妻子，我怎能作這大惡得罪神呢？後來他天天和約瑟說，約瑟卻不聽從他，不以他同情，也不可他在一起。
Just when things seem to be going well for Joseph, he is being lustfully pursued by Potiphar's wife.
當一切似乎係對約瑟嚟講，似乎一切都好順利嘅時候咧，但係咧佢主人嘅妻子咧就睇中咗佢嘅。
Yeah, that's a good one. What was Joseph's response?
咁約瑟嗰個反應係乜嘢咧？
How can I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?
咁佢講我怎能做咁嘅事咧而得罪神咧？
So what happened after this?
咁之後發生咩事咧？
Verses 11 to 20a.
11節到20節。
One day Joseph went into the house to attend to his duties, and none of the household servants was inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and had run out of the house, she called the household servants. "Look," she said, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. Then she told Potiphar this story. "That Hebrew slave you brought us came to me to make sport of me, But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. When his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me." He burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined.
11節開始啊！有一天，約瑟進屋裏去辦事，家中人沒有一個在那裏。婦人就拉住他的衣裳說：你與我同情吧。約瑟把他衣裳丟在婦人手裏，跑到外邊去了。婦人看見約瑟把衣裳丟在他手裏跑出去了，就叫了家裏的人嚟，對他們說：你們看，他帶了一個希伯人嚟，一個希伯來人進入我們家裏，要戲弄我們。他到我這裏來，要與我同情，我就大聲喊叫。他聽見我放聲喊起嚟，就把衣裳丟在我這裏，跑到外邊去了。婦人把約瑟的衣裳放在自己那裏，等着他主人回家，就對他如此說：你所帶到我們這裏的那希伯來僕人進來要戲弄我，我放聲喊起嚟，他就把衣裳丟在我這裏跑出去了。約瑟的主人聽見他妻子對他所說的話，說：你的僕人如此待我，他就生氣，把約瑟下在監裏，就是王的囚犯被囚的地方。於是約瑟在那裏坐監。
Joseph did what was right in the eyes of God.
咁約瑟咧所做嘅事情咧，在神嘅眼中係啱嘅。
But he ended up framed by a lustful woman.
但係咧，佢最後咧係俾呢個淫婦污蔑咗。
And he landed up in prison.
最後咧就坐咗監。
Do upright, religious, righteous people end up in prison?
咁有好多時候呢啲公義嘅人做啱事情嘅人，最後係咪坐咗監咧？
Yes.
係嘅。
Everywhere in the world.
在世界每一個地方都係咁。
Malaysia too.
馬來西亞都係一樣。
So what will happen to Joseph now?
咁依家約瑟係點樣咧
20b to 23.
20節下半節到23節。
But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. God showed him kindness and granted Joseph favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did.
咁約瑟就喺嗰度坐監啦，但耶和華與約瑟同在，向他施恩，使他在司獄的眼前蒙恩。司獄就把監裏所有的囚犯都交在約瑟手下，他們在那裏所辦的事，都是經他的手。凡在約瑟手下的事，司獄一概不查，因為耶和華與約瑟同在，耶和華使他所作的盡都順利。
Again and again we read this phrase, the Lord was with him.
好多時候我哋睇到呢一句啊，就係講耶和華與他同在。
Verses 2 and 3,
第2到第3節，
verse 21,
21節，
verse 23.
23節。
Again and again we read wonderful news about Joseph.
咁好多時候我哋繼續咁聽到約瑟佢所做嘅一切都係好嘅。
In verse 2,
響第2節，
he prospered.
佢一切都順利。
Verse 3,
第3節，
the Lord gave him success in everything he did.
咁神使到佢所做嘅一切都順利。
Verse 23,
23節，
the Lord gave him success in whatever he did.
咁佢所做嘅一切事， 神都祝福佢，
But still, Joseph remained in prison.
但係最後約瑟都係喺監獄裏面。
We go on to chapter 40,
我哋睇40章
verses 1 to 13.
第1到第13節。
Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and Joseph attended them. Again, after they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials, who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why are your faces so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to Joseph, "In my dream, I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." "This is what it means," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer."
40章第1節開始啊。這事以後，埃及王的酒政和善長得罪了他們的主埃及王，法老就怒酒政和善長這2城，把他們下在護衛長府裏的監裏，就是約瑟被囚的地方。護衛長把他們交給約瑟，約瑟便侍候他們。他們有些日子在監裏，為囚在監之埃及王嘅酒政和善長2人同夜各作一夢，各夢都有講解。到了早晨，約瑟進到他們那裏，見他們有愁悶的樣子，便問法老的2臣，就是以他同囚在他主人府裏的，說：他們今日為什麼面帶愁容呢？他們對他說：我們各人作了一夢，沒有人能解。約瑟說：解夢不是出於神麼？請你們將夢告訴我。酒政便將他的夢告訴約瑟說：我夢見在我面前有一棵葡萄樹，樹上有3根枝子，好像發了芽，開了花，上頭的葡萄都成熟了。法老的杯在我手中，我就拿葡萄擠在法老的杯裏，將杯遞在他手中。約瑟對他說：他所作的夢是這樣解：3根枝子就是3天，3天之內，法老必提你出監，要你官復原職。你仍要遞杯在法老的手中，和先前作他的酒政一樣。
Joseph interpreted the dream of Pharaoh's cupbearer.
咁呢個約瑟為呢個酒政解夢啊。
And then Joseph asked for his help.
咁約瑟就求呢個酒政幫助佢。
Verse 14.
14節。
But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison.
14節，但你得好處的時候，求你紀念我，施恩與我，在法老面前提説我，救我出這監獄。
And Joseph shared with him all that happened to Joseph.
咁約瑟即同佢講 佢之前所發生嘅一切事情。
Verse 15.
15節，
For I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I've done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon.
甚至我實在是從希伯來人之地被拐嚟的，我在這裏也沒有作過什麼，叫他們把我下在監裏。
Another person also needed Joseph's help.
咁另外一個人亦都需要呢個約瑟嘅幫助。
Verses 16 to 19.
16到19節，
When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. This is what it means, Joseph said. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat away your flesh.
16節開始，船長見夢解得好，就對約瑟說：我在夢中見我頭上頂着3方白餅，極上的筐子裏有為法老看的各樣食物，有飛鳥來食我頭上筐子裏的食物。約瑟說：你的夢是這樣解，3個筐子就是3天，3天之內法老必斬住你的頭，把你掛在木頭上，必有飛鳥來食你身上的肉。
What happened to the cupbearer and the baker?
咁呢船長同埋酒政佢哋嘅係發生咩事呢？
Verses 20 to 22.
20到22節。
Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief bearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation.
到了第3天是法老的生日，他為眾臣僕設擺筵席，把酒政和船長提出監來，使酒政官服完職。他仍舊遞給在法老手中，但把船長掛起嚟，正如約瑟向他們所解的話。
Everything happened just as Joseph had said.
所有發生嘅事咧，都好似約瑟所解講嘅一樣。
His interpretations of the dreams were accurate.
佢解夢咧解得好正確啊！
However,
但係
did the cupbearer remember Joseph's request?
咁呢個酒政記唔記得佢呢個約瑟向佢所求嘅咧
Verse 23.
？23節，
The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him.
酒政卻不紀念約瑟，竟忘了他。
So sad, yes?
話好悲傷啊！
How long more must Joseph remain in prison?
咁約瑟會繼續喺呢個監牢裏邊有幾耐咧？
Let's go to chapter 41,
41章
verses 1 to 8.
第1到第8節。
When 2 full years had passed, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing by the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 cows, sleek and fat, and they grazed among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows, ugly and gaunt, came up out of the Nile and stood beside those on the river bank. And the cows that were ugly and gaunt ate up the 7 sleek, fat cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 heads of grain, healthy and good, were growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads of grain sprouted, thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 healthy, full heads. Then Pharaoh woke up. It had been a dream. In the morning, his mind was troubled. So he sent for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt. Pharaoh told them his dreams, but no one could interpret them for him.
41章第1節開始啦。過了2年，法老作夢，夢見自己站在河邊，有7隻母牛從河裏上嚟， 又美好又肥壯，在路地中食草。隨後又有7隻母牛從河裏生來，又草餅又乾瘦，與那7隻母牛一同擲在河邊。這又草餅又那乾瘦的7隻母牛食盡了那美好又肥壯的7隻母牛，法老就醒了。他又睡着，第二回作夢，夢見一棵麥子，長了7個穗子，又肥大又佳美。隨後又長了7個穗子，又細弱，又被東風吹焦了。這細弱的穗子吞了那7個又肥大又飽滿的穗子。法老醒了，不料是個夢。到了早晨，法老心裏不安，就差人招了埃及所有的術士和博士嚟。法老就把所作的夢告訴他們，卻沒有人能給法老圓解。
Pharaoh had 2 dreams, but nobody could interpret for him.
法老王就有2個夢，但係冇人能夠幫佢解夢。
And then a miracle happened.
咁有個神蹟發生喎。
Verses 9 to 13.
9到13節。
Then the chief bearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I am reminded of my shortcomings. Pharaoh was once angry with his servants, and he imprisoned me and the chief baker in the house of the captain of the guard. Each of us had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. Now a young Hebrew was there with us, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them for us, giving each man the interpretation of his dream. And things turned out exactly as he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was hanged."
第9節開始，那時酒政對法老說：我今日想起我的罪來。從前法老惱怒成暴，把我和士長下在護衛長府裏的監裏。我們2人同夜各作一夢，各夢都有講解。在那裏逃着我們有一個希伯來的少年人，是護衛長的僕人。我們告訴他，他就把我們的夢圓解，係按照各人的夢圓解的。後來正如他給我們圓解的成就了，我官復原職，善長被掛起來了。
The cupbearer remembered what Joseph did for him.
嗰個酒政呢，就記起約瑟為佢做嘅一切。
Then he remembered Joseph's request, "Mention me to Pharaoh."
咁佢記得約瑟曾對佢講，在法老王面前提起佢。
What was the result when the cupbearer mentioned Joseph to Pharaoh?
當呢個酒政對法老王講到約瑟嘅時候，有咩事發生呢？
Verses 14 to 15.
45節。
So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I've heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it."
14節，法老隨即差人去召約瑟，他們便急忙帶他出監，他就剃頭、刮面、換衣裳，帶進到法老面前。法老對約瑟說：我作了一夢，沒有人能解。我聽見人說，你聽了夢就能解。
When the cupbearer forgot about Joseph,
當呢個酒政忘記咗約瑟嘅時候，
Joseph spent 2 more years in prison.
咁呢個約瑟咧就喺監獄裏邊多咗3年。
And then when he mentioned Joseph to Pharaoh,
當佢呢個酒政同法老王講起約瑟嘅時候，
Joseph got out of prison immediately.
即刻嘅約瑟就從監獄嗰度出咗嚟。
He stood before Pharaoh.
佢企喺呢個法老王面前。
He heard Pharaoh's request for an interpretation of his 2 dreams.
咁佢法老王求佢解呢2個夢啊。
What was Joseph's response to Pharaoh's request?
咁呢個約瑟對法老王嘅要求係乜嘢反應呢？
Verse 16.
16節，
I cannot do it, Joseph replied to Pharaoh. But God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires.
16節，約瑟回答法老說：這不在乎我，神必將平安的話回答法老。
Joseph was humble enough to say to Pharaoh that it is not he, Joseph, but only God can interpret Pharaoh's dreams.
咁約瑟好謙卑咁同法老講，其實唔係佢可以解夢，而係神個幫係神解夢。
Verses 17 to 27.
17到
27.
17到
Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when out of the river there came up 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean. I never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so. They looked just as ugly as before. Then I woke up. In my dreams, I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. After them, 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin, and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to the magicians, but none could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what God is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. There are 7 years of famine.
17節開始啊！法老對約瑟說：我夢見我站在河邊，有7隻母牛從河裏上來，又肥壯又氣好，在陸地中食草。隨後又有7隻母牛上嚟，又軟弱又醜地，又乾瘦，在埃及遍地，我們有見過這樣不好的。這又乾瘦又皺病的母牛，食盡了那以先的7隻肥母牛。食了以後卻看不出是食了，那臭病的樣子仍舊和先前一樣，我就醒了。我又夢見一棵麥子，長了7個葦子，又飽滿又佳美。隨後又長了7個葦子，枯槁細弱，被東風吹焦了。這些細弱的葦子吞了那7個佳美的葦子。我將這夢告訴了術士，卻沒有人能給我解說。約瑟對法老說：法老的夢乃是一個，神已將所要作的事指示法老了。7隻好母牛是7年，7個好葦子也是7年，這夢乃是一個。那隨後上嚟的7隻又乾瘦又醜炳的母牛係7年，那7個虛空被東風吹焦的葦子也是7年，都是7個方言。
What was Joseph's interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams?
咁約瑟點樣解呢個法老個夢呢？
Verses 28 to 32.
28到32節。
It is just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered, because the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon.
18節開始，這就是我對法老所說，神已將所要做的事顯明給法老了。埃及遍地必來7個大風年， 隨後又要嚟7個荒年，甚至埃及地都忘了先前的豐收，全地必被饑荒所滅。因那以後的饑荒甚大，便不覺得先前的豐收了。至於法老兩回作夢，是因神命定這事，而且必速速成就。
After interpreting Pharaoh's dreams, Joseph took a step further.
當約瑟為法老解咗夢之後，佢再行前一步。
He said to Pharaoh,
佢對法老説
verses 33 to 36,
33到36節。
And now Pharaoh, look for a discerning and wise man, and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming, and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh, to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country, to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine.
33節開始，所以法老當揀選一個有聰明有智慧的人，派他治理埃及地。法老當這樣行，又派官員管理這地。當7個豐年的時候，徵收埃及地的1/5，叫他們把將來豐年一切的糧食聚斂起嚟，積蓄五穀，收存在各城裏做食物，歸於法老的手下。所積存的糧食可以防備埃及地將來嘅7個荒年，免得這地被饑荒所滅。
What did Pharaoh think about Joseph's advice?
法老王佢對約瑟所俾個提議有咩反應呢？
Verses 37 to 43.
37到42節。
The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed Joseph in robes of fine linen and put a gold chain around his neck. He had Joseph ride in a chariot as his second in command, and men shouted before him, Make way. Thus Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of the whole land of Egypt.
37節開始，法老和他一切臣僕都以這事為妙。法老對臣僕說，像這樣的人，有神的靈在他裏頭，我們豈能找得着呢？法老對約瑟說，神既將這事都指示你，可見沒有人像你這樣有聰明有智慧。你可掌管我的家，我的民都必聽從你的話，唯獨在寶座上我比你大。法老又對約瑟說，我派你治理埃及全地。法老就摘下手上打印的戒指，戴在約瑟的手上，給他穿上絲麻衣，把金鏈戴在他的頸上。
So here today we see the life of Joseph.
我哋睇到喺呢度，我哋睇到約瑟嘅生命。
He started off as the beloved son of his father.
佢開始嘅時候係佢爸爸最喜歡個兒子。
From beloved son, he became a slave.
咁從呢個最父喜歡嘅兒子變成一個奴僕。
From a slave, he became a prisoner.
咁成為奴僕之後，佢成為監犯。
And from a prisoner, he became the prime minister.
從監犯當中，佢成為呢個首相。
What can we learn today?
咁今日我哋從呢度，我哋有咩可以學習到嘅咧？
Like Joseph,
就好似約瑟一樣，
we can suddenly fall down from a favored position to a very deep pit.
咁我哋可以就從呢個高嘅地位上，我哋可以跌到最低。
Joseph was the favored son of his father.
咁約瑟係佢爸爸最喜愛嘅兒子，
His brothers hated him.
咁佢啲兄弟妒忌佢，
His brothers were jealous of him,
憎恨佢，妒忌佢，
hated him,
憎恨佢，
sold him into slavery.
所以
Sold him into slavery.
就將佢變成一個奴僕。
As a slave,
成為奴僕之後，
he was not supposed to have any future.
佢係真係一切將來都冇晒㗎啦。
But Joseph trusted God.
但係約瑟佢相信上帝，
He did not live with hatred for his brothers.
佢冇憎恨佢嘅哥哥，
He did not complain about his terrible state of life.
佢亦都冇為着佢自己嘅生命就喺度發怨言，
He did not give up living.
佢冇放棄佢嘅生命，
He relied on God 100%.
佢100%咁信靠神。
What did God do for Joseph?
咁上帝為約瑟做咗乜嘢咧？
God rewarded his faith.
咁上帝就報答佢個呢個信心。
God was with him when he was a slave.
當佢成為一個奴僕嘅時候，上帝與佢同在。
God blessed him with success.
上帝祝福佢，使到佢成功。
And then when he was framed for attempted rape and imprisoned, Joseph did not give up on his faith in God.
當佢被放入監房嘅時候，約瑟佢都冇放棄佢自己嘅信仰。
He did not live with hatred for Potiphar's wife who framed him.
佢冇因為波提法個妻子陷害佢就憎恨懷恨。
He did not live with hatred for Potiphar who threw him into prison.
佢都冇懷恨呢個波提法將佢放在監房裏邊。
Even in prison, he trusted God.
在監房裏邊，佢一樣咁信靠神。
In prison, he helped the cupbearer.
喺監房裏邊，佢幫助呢個酒政。
But the cupbearer forgot about him for 2 years.
咁呢個酒政又忘記佢，有2年之間都忘記咗佢。
And 2 years in prison is a long time.
咁樣監房2年咧係好長嘅時間。
When Joseph was finally released from prison,
當最後約瑟被放出監房嘅時候，
he had become someone
佢成為又出名嘅人。
who had moved from being a slave to being a prisoner.
佢就從呢個奴僕咧變
Prisoner to being a prisoner, and from being a prisoner to prime minister.
佢從呢個奴僕咧就變成呢個首相。
From slave,
從呢個奴僕，
he became a prisoner.
佢變成一個囚犯。
From prisoner,
從呢個囚犯當中，
he became prime minister.
佢成為呢個首相。
Joseph was 17 years old when he was sold as a slave.
約瑟17歲嘅時候，佢就被賣變成呢個奴僕。
He was 30 years old when he became a prime minister.
佢30歲嘅時候成為呢個首相。
He was 39 years old when he finally got to meet up with his family again.
佢39歲嘅時候咧，佢終於同佢嗰啲家人啦再見面。
For 22 years,
有22年嘅時間，
he was separated from his father who loved him so much.
佢就同佢呢個愛佢嘅父親分開咗。
What did he say to his brothers when he finally met them face to face?
當佢哋見到約瑟同佢呢啲兄弟相見嘅時候，佢對佢兄弟講乜嘢咧？
Genesis chapter 45 verses 4 to 8.
創世記45章第4到8節。
Then Joseph said to his brothers, because they were so afraid, you know, he could harm them, he's so powerful, he's the prime minister of Egypt. And they went to Egypt to get food,
當佢哋約瑟個弟兄見到佢哋見到佢呢個細佬嘅時候約瑟佢哋真係好驚㗎，因為而家佢成為呢個首相。
So this is what Joseph said.
約瑟對佢哋講。
Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother, Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there's been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, they will not be plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me here in Egypt, but God who sent me here in Egypt. God made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household, and ruler of all Egypt."
45章第4節開始約瑟又對他弟兄們說：請你們近前嚟。他們就近前嚟，他說：我是你們的兄弟約瑟，就是你們所賣到埃及的。現在不要因為把我賣到這裏自憂自恨，這是神差我在你們以先嚟，為要保存生命。現在這地的饑荒已經2年了，還有5年不能耕種，不能收成。神差我在你們以先嚟，為要給你們存留餘種在世上，又要大施拯救，保存你們的生命。這樣看嚟，差我到這裏來的不是你們，乃是神。他又使我如法老的父，作他全家的主，並埃及全地的宰相。
Let us have this forgiving heart.
希望我哋都有呢個原諒嘅心。
Let us have this noble heart.
亦都有呢個尊貴嘅心。
When life doesn't turn out the way we like,
當我哋生命唔如我哋所想像咁，
when something terrible happens to us,
當有唔好嘅事發生在我哋身上，
when we are betrayed,
當我哋俾人出賣，
when we are framed,
當我哋軟弱嘅時候，
when we are forgotten,
當我哋俾人忘記嘅時候，
let us be like Joseph.
讓我哋都好似約瑟咁一樣。
Let us calmly accept it. Let us calmly accept whatever is happening to us.
讓我哋都能夠接受所發生在我哋身上嘅一切。
Do our best in any terrible situation.
在所有唔好嘅事嘅環境當中，我哋做我哋自己嘅最好。
And carry on trusting God.
並且去繼續咁嚟信靠上帝。
Let us today
今日
know with deep conviction
我哋有呢個深信
that whatever happens,
無論發生乜嘢事，
wherever we are,
我哋喺邊一度都好，
as God was with Joseph,
就如上帝與約瑟一齊，
God will be with us.
上帝都會與我哋一樣一齊同在，
And God will bless us.
上帝會祝福我哋。
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
奉聖父、聖子、聖靈的名，阿們。
Let us